Hi everyone, welcome to Woolen Spinning. My name is Rachel. This is episode 43 and I would like to welcome you all to this place. Thank you to everybody who is a Patreon subscriber. We have reached a big tier this week and I want to thank everybody for supporting the show. They are the people that keep the show on the air and deserve a huge amount of credit. So thank you so much to everybody who supports the show. I can be found pretty much everywhere as Wellford Pearls, and I live just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia with my family. You will hear some background noise tonight, same as last show. There is a dog in the office with me. Charlotte is panting away in the corner. She is wearing her cone of shame. She had massive leg surgery last week and she's not quite allowed to go out of the office just yet and walk around just yet. She's still non-weight bearing on her leg that was had her ligament repair on. So please excuse the noise. I've tried to position the microphone in an optimal spot compared to last week, so hopefully that will minimize the noise. This is the only room on the main floor of the house where she can be and not sort of get in the way of the kids. So it just is the way it is. So I'm sorry for the next couple of weeks because she will be joining us every week for the next couple of weeks. And I hope it's not too much of a bother. I mentioned that we reached a Patreon tier this past week. That means that the show will resume on iTunes. For those of you who use the iTunes service to download the podcast, please know that that is brought to you by the Patreon subscribers, and I hope that you will think about supporting the show. There has been some very active chatter this week in the Slack channel, and everybody was really congratulatory about meeting this new tier because it also means that we are going to be enjoying slightly longer shows. It means I don't have to rush through quite so quickly, and I can take my time a little bit more. The editing of the show takes quite a bit of time, and so I am very cognizant of how long I make these shows since this is a weekly podcast. So thank you again. I have a little bit to show you this week. I have some spindle spinning, I have a finished skein, and I have some hand spun knitting. So let's jump into the show. The first thing that I thought that I would show you is actually a new spindling project. This is some fiber that I bought at Knit City here in Vancouver back at the beginning of the month in October. This was some fiber from my friend Katrina, who is Crafty Jack's Boutique on Ravelry. On Etsy. And many of you know Katrina because she is very active in the Ravelry group and also on the Slack channel. So she is Crafty Jack's most places except on Ravelry where she is Calum1. This is a gradient blend that she did that I bought from her at Knit City, and it goes from black all the way up to white. And the reason why I bought it is actually because of the gray tones in it. I bought another one of her gradient sets to go with this, which is yellows and ochre yellows, which of course are my favorite for those who have watched the show for a while. And this is 100% merino, this whole set, and it's a total of 2.8 ounces. So it'll give me enough to add for the striping detail in the shawl that I want to knit. So I've just started this. It is on one of my Bosworth minis. And so far I'm enjoying it. I will be Navajo plying it, chain plying it, because I want to keep these colors clean. And I'm really enjoying spinning it thus far. I just started this today and it's so far going quite quickly. So I'm thinking 2 ounces will be done relatively quickly if I can focus on it. I've got some other spins that I need to do. So that is my first project that I'm working on. I actually have a finished project this week, a finished spin, a couple of finished skeins. But first I wanted to really quickly mention something that I had talked about last week, which was my Russian support spindles. So this is a relatively new obsession for me. One of the ladies in our guild who I've befriended over the last couple of years is going to actually give me a bit of a crash course. We did some bartering together and we're going to do a bit of a swap. And I'm going to sit down with her this winter and sort of ask her some questions about support spindling because she is truly an amazing support spindler. We talked a lot about Russian spindles and I showed her what I had bought, and she actually happens to have a few of these, which was really great because we could talk based on her experience and knowledge of these particular spindles, which come from Alberta. And I had mentioned to her that I was finding it a little bit heavy, that they don't move really super quickly, and it reminds me of the same sort of spinning experience that you would get on a standard drop spindle or a standard Turkish spindle. So sort of 40 grams range-ish for the spindle weight. And she agreed with me that that was in fact the case, and that I probably was going to start finding it a wee bit slow. And she's going to introduce me to some of her other spindles as well, which I'm really looking forward to. So I did pull off a finished skein. And this was some of my own poonies that I had made a couple of years ago, and I had sort of stashed them after I decided not to proceed with an Etsy shop for poonies and row legs and whatnot. It just wasn't the right time. And so this is my finished skein, and it's just very small. This was only an ounce of fiber. It was quite fast to spin. It's a combination of merino, Corriedale, camel. I think that's everything. I think that was only the 3. There was some superwash merino in here for sure, because I had some left over in my stash and I was trying to use it up in here, and I remember throwing it in. And then there was some Corriedale that was quite neppy, that was old. I still have some of it in my stash, and it spun up so beautifully that I'm actually thinking I might spin up some more or card up some more and make some more poonie style row legs with it. Because it spun beautifully. And then you can see the dark brown in there, which is the camel fiber. So that really added a lot of contrast to the yarn. It added a lot of depth and texture, a lot of interest to the yarn. And I gave it a good thwack. I soaked it for a while. It is long draw because it's on a support spindle. And I thwacked it. I soaked it actually for a while because I did ply it on my Lendrum. And after I was finished plying, it had a lot of ply twist, and I soaked it for a little while, and then I gave it a good snap, and then I thwacked it really quite hard against our bathtub all the way around the skein, and this is what has ended up being the finished skein. It's roughly a heavy fingering, light sport. I'm not sure what the wraps per inch exactly would be. I suspect it would probably be 15 or 16 wraps per inch. It's a little bit inconsistent, and it'll look awesome in my mitered squares sock blanket. So I'm really excited to use it in there. It's I'm really happy with how the skein turned out, and it's quite squishy and quite springy, which I wasn't expecting. So that's quite a lovely outcome of the yarn. I also pulled off. This was a little sample that I did, and I hope that you'll be able to see this in all of its color glory. At our guild this past week, we had a demonstration for an upcoming workshop that one of our guild members is going to be putting on in the spring, and it's by our very own Diana Twist, who blogs over at 100milewear.com. She has been developing a workshop and held it back in June for the first time, called Wild About Color. It sounds like a really awesome workshop. I just pulled this off because she spent the evening doing a demo of sort of what the workshop would entail and what you could expect if you took the workshop, along with lots of ideas about how to knit with your handspun, how to manage color, all that kind of stuff. And then we had an opportunity to play at the wheel, and this was my results. I just plied it tonight. I was way too tired on Tuesday to sit down and ply at the same time. Everybody else had their center pull walls going, and I put it aside and I pulled out my knitting. I was just too tired. Like today, I came off of nights last weekend, and I just find by Monday and Tuesday I'm pretty drained and just need a quiet evening. So I just sat and enjoyed looking at everybody else's results, but I did finally get mine done, and that was it. So again, this is also going to go into my sock yarn blanket, which I need to show you guys because it's grown quite a bit and I haven't shown you any updates on it. I have a finished skein. I'm not going to say too much about this, but this is from Farm Fairy Fiber here in Pitt Meadows, British Columbia. It's Karen, who is also our host for Color Studies in the Ravelry group, which is just started up. People are generating some amazing photographs for the split complement that we have chosen to study. One of the photos in particular is this. It looks like it's of a dragonfly, and the color, the saturation of color is just amazing. So thank you to everybody who's participating. If color studies is something that you would like to learn more about and you would like to know more about, please head over to the Ravelry group, Wool and Spinning. You can have a look at the very first post that I put in that thread titled Color Studies. You read through that. If you still have questions, please don't hesitate to post them or send me a direct message. Color Studies is a result of one of the Patreon tiers, and people who are Patreon subscribers will have the first opportunity to buy fiber once Karen has died and is ready to take orders. And this was one of her colors that we had developed, me and my friend Katrina, who did the gradient nests of fiber that I showed you at the beginning of the show. And I spun this up, and this is actually for my friend Katrina. So she's going to be working on a pattern for it, and I spun this up for her. It's a sport weight. It's roughly 280 yards-ish. It's quite a dense yarn. We dyed this on 100% merino, and it did come out quite dense. I spun it short forward draw. You can see that it's got quite a bit of curly cues and quite a bit of twist in it because I haven't finished the yarn yet. I haven't washed it or soaked it or thwacked it. And I'm hoping that once it's finished, it'll have a bit of sproing to it. I spun it on 9:1, sort of a lower ratio for me. I tend to spin merino on a higher ratio because I wanted to spin the singles finer with a lower twist. And then I plied it on 18:1. So I wanted to put more of the twist into the ply, and I'm hoping that that'll create a bouncy springy yarn, which are some of my favorite yarns to knit with. So I'm hoping that Katrina will enjoy it as well. So that was that finished skein, and I will give this to Katrina next weekend when I see her at our guild sale. We host an annual artisan sale every year, and many of us have put in a lot of our hand spun yarn. You may have seen a post from me on Instagram. And it goes through a jurying process, which was this past weekend. My stuff all thankfully got through, and it will be in the show next weekend for purchase. So anybody who is local to the Fraser Valley here in just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia, it's going to be held at in Fort Langley at the community hall, which is when you come into Fort Langley, it's just one main road, and it's the big yellow building on the left. You can't miss it. So Fort Langley is a lovely destination to come out to for the day. If you want to go wander along the path, go for a bit of a walk, have a coffee, have lunch. It's a wonderful little community. It's about 2 minutes down the road from me, and I am really looking forward to working at the artisan sale next weekend. So if you are planning on coming, and you are planning on, it's actually this weekend, because by the time you see this, it'll be Thursday, and the show starts on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. I will be working there for most of Saturday, so please, please come by and say hello. You can't miss me because, you know, red hair. So please, please come by and say hello if you're going to be coming by and seeing what they have. For those out there who are looking for fiber and wool, we do have a wool room, and there's a couple of local dyers and local suppliers who will be there. It's not a huge venue, but it's definitely enough to come and check out and have a look and see what people are doing. So I hope that I'll see you there, and I'm going to pass this on to Katrina next weekend. So I have some knitting to show you. This is stuff that I showed you last week, but I thought I'd give you a bit of an update on it. I have had a little bit of knitting time because I have been working nights. This, you will remember from Spinzilla, was some of my CVM, Suffolk, and Meat Merino cross. I had over dyed it with black walnut, if you'll remember from a couple of shows ago. There was a clip at the end of that process of over dyeing it. This yarn is proving really interesting to knit with. This was a woolen spun, so long backward draw. It was a roving prep from Custom Woolen Mills originally, which are located in Carstairs, Alberta. It is a 2-ply. I had originally planned it for another sweater, but as I was spinning, I really wanted to knit the Fireside Pullover by Jane Richmond, which is a new pattern. And I stared at it the whole weekend that I was spinning in the Sweet George Yarns' booth at Knit City, and I just could see it on the dress form just across the aisle, and I just kept looking at it, and really, really loved the shape and the feel of the cardigan. I thought this yarn would be perfect for it. So before I put this down, I did scour this before I dyed it. I was quite sure there was still a little bit of, that you can feel the lanolin still in the fiber. And it has a bit of a sheepy smell still, in the sense of like the lanolin smell and just the, I always think of it as sort of an earthy smell, I guess. Anyways, it has sort of a certain waxy feel to it. And so I was interested to see what it would feel like when I started to knit with it. And it's no different knitting it. It's a little bit firm to the hand. It has a firm hand for sure. And by firm hand, I mean that there isn't any drape to this yarn. I would consider this yarn to be sort of, it has a squishiness to it that I think is probably from a combination of the merino and the Suffolk, the downy sort of part of it, aspects of the fiber. And as I'm knitting, I finished the collar last week, which I showed you guys, and then I'm working my way down now through the raglan increases here. And it's sort of an interesting, it's a really neat construction. I really, really like how it's gonna look. But the yarn itself has a real sprawling to it, and the lanolin, and every time I touch it, I almost feel like I come away with like there's a film on it almost. And I felt it before I dyed it, and it's still there. So I think after I finish knitting it, I'm gonna actually scour it again. I might use some Orvis paste, or I might use some unicorn wash, just to see like if there's something on the yarn itself that I can maybe get off. The other thing is that it almost feels, and I had washed this after I finished spinning for Spinzilla, and then I dyed it, so I ended up washing it again, and then I rinsed it, so it was like wet for quite a long period of time, and it almost had, and before I washed it, like before I did that initial wash after Spinzilla, even then, the fiber feels like it's wet, which is a very odd feeling because it's dry. There's no moisture in it, but it feels wet, and it feels like there's moisture in it, which is very weird. It's a very odd feel. Like I'm sitting here feeling it, trying to describe it to you, and it very much feels like there's moisture in the yarn. And the yarn is dry, and there's no moisture left in it, but even in its skein, it feels like it's got sort of a moistness to it. And I don't know if it's the lanolin or if it's just the feel of the fiber, the content of the fiber. It's very interesting. And the funny thing is that to knit with it, even though it has a firmer hand, it's a little bit toothier. It's definitely, it's firm in the sense that it's not creating a fabric that's going to drape per se. It's creating a denser fabric that's going to sit in form on my shoulders, and it's going to be a sweater. It's definitely a woolly wool, a toothy wool. I wouldn't say that this is coarse particularly. It's not toothy particularly. It's really woolly. It really reminds me of the old, well, they're not old, they still make them, but what I grew up with, the Cowichan sweaters. That's what this yarn feels like, and that's what this sweater is feeling like. It really feels like those Cowichan sweaters that were knit from 100% wool back in the 70s and 80s that I grew up with. And it's a very odd feeling because it's really got that squishy, woolly, not your typical yarn that you would pull off the shelf in your local yarn shop. It certainly does not feel like this at all, which is 100% merino. This has a very different feel, although my hands are now coated, so now that feels like this. There's definitely a film on this. There's something on it, and I'm thinking that it might be the lanolin. Anyways, not to go on and on, but it's definitely got a feel to it. I'm loving the pattern. I'm really enjoying it. I did pull out, I had started all of my raglan increases. And basically, not to give away any of the secret sauce, but you finish the collar and then you pick up a bunch of stitches. And I had picked up all of my stitches along the back edge, neck edge, and also along the shoulder, which comes over here. And I was knitting down, and I was actually almost finished the raglan increases. I was ready to connect the collar, which eventually goes like this. I was almost to the point where I was gonna, connect the collar and separate for the sleeves, and I just kept looking at this back neck edge, and I just couldn't stand how I had picked up my stitches. It was just really driving me crazy. So I did rip back, and if you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen me do that. I did rip back all the way to the beginning, and I'm redoing it. So I did put this aside. for a couple of days just because I was feeling a little bit burned out on it. And I have been working on my exploration station. So I'll show you that. And then I think we'll be able to say goodbye. So my exploration station is, I haven't talked about it for a couple weeks, but basically, and I'm in the middle of a row. Sorry about that. It is a, maybe I'll knit on it while I'm talking to you. It is a knit by Stephen West. It is quite a large shawl. A lot of people have knit it. It's very, very popular on Ravelry. I chose to knit mine out of 3 skeins, separate skeins that I had spun from Three Waters Farm. They were all very different in their own way, and I had received one as part of Fiber Club in November of 2014, and then I had bought 2 of the other ones and received them in the mail. And one of the things that had struck me after I had finished spinning them was how similar they were, even though they were very different in the braids of fiber. There was a lime green through the 3 skeins that felt very similar. The dye was very similar. The color was very similar. And there's also this sort of auburny brown that runs through all 3 skeins that's pretty much the same as another skein that I had already spun up from Sweet Georgia. And I had spun it as singles. It was a BFL. And the other 3 were a myriad of things. One was Polworth and Silk. One was Falkland. And one was, what was the third one? Oh, shoot. I don't remember what it was. It was one of the finer wools. It wasn't merino, but it wasn't BFL. It was like, I think it was Targhee. That doesn't sound right. Anyways, it's going to bug me now. I had spun all 3 of the braids very differently. The Falkland I had spun as a 3-ply fractal. The Polworth and Silk I had Navajo plied. And the third one I had done it as a traditional 3-ply. But in the end, the 3 yarns had many of the same colors and had many of the same, they looked very not homogeneous. They looked very, there's a word I'm looking for when stuff looks very, there was a harmony. That's the word I'm looking for. There was a harmony to the 3 skeins, and I kept pulling them out of my stash, and I'd pull one out, and I'd think, oh, I should cast on for X, Y, or Z out of this one. And then I'd put it back in because I couldn't use all 3 skeins in the project. And so I kept coming back to it and kept coming back to it. And I eventually spun the Auburn, which was the Sweet Georgia yarn singles in the BFL. And I figured I wouldn't use so much if I put that in as the tie together color for the other 3 in the project, that I could still maybe do the project that I had planned for the Auburn eventually, which I would really like to do the Frida shawl by, which was a Brooklyn tweed pattern from a couple of years ago. I still have it in my queue. It's like 3 or 4 and I still haven't gotten to it. In the end, I don't know that I am going to use that yarn for that project because as a singles yarn, even knitting on this with it, I'm finding that I am worried about whether or not long term it would stay together and be a strong enough yarn. So so this project has really helped me to kind of figure that out, and I might actually 2-ply it and get some more of that colorway to round out and have enough for the shawl, the Frida shawl. And in the interim, I have been working on my exploration station. So this is where I'm at now. I am in the slip stitches section, which is the second of the 3 textured sections on the shawl. I have finished all of the wedges, and I have finished the brioche section, which I'm not going to lie, took forever. And I am just about ready to start the 3rd and final section, which is just straight knitting, which is perfect. And that is sort of what it's looking like. So it's very crazy. It's quite wild. I have talked about this sweater before, or about this shawl before, and how crazy it is for me. But I've ended up really enjoying working on it, and I really kind of like it. So I'm looking forward to wearing it and seeing what other people think, because it is wild and crazy even for me. So that is that. thank you for bearing with me while I finish that row. I want to take a moment really quickly to mention that there is a giveaway going on in the Ravelry group. I did not announce winners today because I had said that it would run to the end of October, which is this coming weekend. So you have until Monday, October 31st to enter the giveaway for the Sukapolaki Spinner's Control card. Go into the episode thread for October and let us know why a Spinner's Control card would be helpful for you. And I will draw 3 winners next week and let you know who won. I hope that you enjoyed the show. Thank you again to our Patreon supporters for getting this show onto iTunes. And I will talk to you next week. Bye, everyone.